Hello there, Tien here, and welcome to episode number 6 of the Real Talk with Tien podcast. This podcast talks about the realities of being a crochet and knitwear designer, a technical editor, and making a living doing what you love. If this is your first episode, welcome. If you're a return listener, welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. In this episode, we're talking about a topic that affects all of us. Whether you're a designer, a technical editor, or a maker of any kind. And that topic is what to do when an idea fails. Story of my life, right? And maybe yours too. But despite failures and things not working out as expected, I'm never really upset to have taken the risk in the first place, regardless of the results. Sometimes we are so afraid that we might fail, we don't even start. We're afraid how it might look to others that we don't even take that chance in the first place. Maybe a design proposal doesn't get accepted by a publisher for their call for submission, even though you were super sure it was a perfect fit for their mood board. Or maybe a self-published design went live and totally flopped. You didn't get the kind of sales you were expected. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's okay because it totally hurts. And I mean bad. I feel like, you probably feel like what's even the point? And you're looking around and you're thinking others are doing it and making it look so flawless. First, it's not flawless. And if anyone is telling you it's easy, that's a lie. And second, don't take it personal. Yes, I know that it's easier said than done, but you have to separate yourself from the idea and the thing that you are making. Because the truth is, you are not your design. The rejection of the proposed idea is not a rejection of you. The few sales on that last design is not a reflection of your personal worth. The pattern making a whopping $12 over the launch of a weekend instead of $120 that you were hoping is not saying that you are worth $12. It's just saying that the pattern, for whatever reason, that's what you made. And just take it as that and not personally. Okay? So let's rewind a bit. Before we get too far into the weeds of this conversation, let's get very specific here. We can go in so many different directions, such as if you're a designer versus a tech editor versus a graphic designer, what have you. But for simplicity and for this conversation, we're just going to focus on designing and a failed or a flop pattern release, just so that we're all on the same page and we can use a simple example. Okay, so let's first define what a flop pattern release might actually look like. Okay, so it could be a failed pattern, could be a pattern release that performed well below expectation despite your efforts. For example, like in our previous example, it could be you setting a goal of $125 in pattern sale over the introductory weekend of the pattern release, but instead you're only making a small fraction of that, maybe about $12 or 2 pattern sales. Or it could even be a whopping 0 sales. Okay? Many would consider that a failed pattern release, right? You're probably thinking, 2 pattern sale, absolutely failed. So that's essentially what we're talking about. Our perception of what a failed or flop pattern release looks like. And by the way, let's be absolutely clear here that I don't consider a flop design to be a failure, but rather I see it as an opportunity to learn and grow. You can always take away something from every experience. You can look at and see what did you do and what can you do differently next time to improve the situation. Okay? Sure, it sucks big time to get those pitying little sales, right? I get it. I've been there many, many times. It hurts a lot to put something so personal like a design that you've worked on for months and months out there into the world and it not being received as you'd hope. You put so much time, energy, and money into it for it to not to have to be a success. But the truth is, if your pattern launch flopped, maybe you were hoping for 10, 20, or even 50 sales the first weekend of the pattern release, but instead you got only 2 sales. You might not see it, but point one, these 2 sales are huge because 2 people took a chance on you and you should be honored, that they bought your pattern. And point number 2, you are not your design, meaning that your worth is not tied up in that pattern. The design launch flop does not mean that you as a person flop or that you are not a good human, right? So I mean, oftentimes we tie our self-worth to external factors like the outcome of something that we really can't control. Whether it's the success or the failure of the thing we do, but that's not true. We are not our designs. If the design didn't go well, that is not a direct reflection. That is not a direct reflection on you and your worth as a human. And I really want you to hear that because too often we are talking about getting paid for what we're worth. Like the cost of a $6 pattern is a reflection of what you're worth as a person. And it's not. The worth of the pattern is not your worth. So when the pattern flops, separate yourself from it. Look at it with new eyes to see it for what it really is. That it's not you. Sure, seeing your new design, your little darling fail is uber embarrassing. You think everyone is seeing your failure. You think everyone is seeing your failure when your pattern flops. All you're thinking is that you're just a big loser and everyone is seeing it. And it is the worst. I mean, it feels awful. I mean, even worse is maybe you told all your friends in your knitting group that it was going live and everyone is excited for you. But side note here, if they're all excited for you, why didn't they support you? But that's a whole different conversation for another day. So we'll continue. Okay, so maybe you had big plans for a collection around this one design, and because it flopped, you're thinking, now what? Why even bother to pursue that idea of a collection? I know it feels awful putting so much into it and for it to not go as planned. But the truth is, no one is looking that closely at what you're doing. No one's probably even noticing that the launch even happened or that it didn't go as well as you planned. Because you can't control how others will react to the work you put out there. All you can do is control how you respond. I mean, you can go all ostrich and just put your head in the sand and hide away in shame, or just because your pattern didn't do so well and say, I'm never coming, put your hand up and say, I'm never coming out again. Or you can just pull yourself up and try again. Now, how do I know this to be true? That, you can just pull yourself up and try again and it will be okay. Newsflash, I've actually been there. I've had designs that flop big time. One in particular did so poorly, I almost removed it from Ravelry. Good thing I didn't because it's doing really well right now. And that is really my point here. So here's a little bit about my story about my failed launch. You think a handful of sales over a launch weekend is bad? Okay, think again. Well, how about zero sales? Nada over almost 12 months. Who did that? Yep, those are thumbs pointing at me, this girl. Embarrassing, right? Yes. Well, kinda. And I say kinda because I'm looking back and I mean, hindsight is 2020, and looking back I can see what I did wrong and what happened and that it really didn't matter. But when you're in this situation, of course it feels awful. Okay? But also I said it's kinda embarrassing because the blessing was that at the time I was pretty busy. So I didn't have time to really dwell on it, and maybe I was a little too stubborn to take the pattern down. But that's a conversation too for another day. Anyway, with that flop pattern, I knew deep down that ultimately the design was solid. But there was just something that was missing that just wasn't translated. And I had to figure that out for it to work. But at the time, I didn't really have the time to figure it out. I was working with publishers for patterns. And I mean, I had other designs in my catalog that was doing pretty well, so it wasn't really a big deal. So after about, a few months, almost a year, I had some time. I took some time out and just really look at what was going on with this pattern. Why wasn't it converting? Why was no one really paying attention to it? So I took some time, look at the design with fresh eyes from the perspective of a designer seeing it for the first time. And that the fact that it was almost a year, that really helped, right? So I looked at it, made a few tweaks to the design, and worked on some marketing strategies using tools from the Pattern Launch Plan book. And I was able to relaunch that pattern again. And this time knocked it out of the park. I mean, seriously, this pattern took me over a year to see any type of profit. So when you're looking at your design and you're seeing, a few pattern sales over the first weekend of the launch, just look at my example of zero profit for almost a year and then reworking the design and now making it a success. So now, what if a year earlier I had taken that launch failure personally, rolled up my shingles on my virtual storefront and just quit? Where would I be today? I don't know, and I don't want to know. And that's because I didn't give up. And I don't want to know what the alternatives would have been if I had quit. Sure, I felt super icky to not see the success I was looking for in those first few months. And I really beat myself up for a very long time for not making any sales on that pattern, even though I was busy doing some, other projects. In the back of my mind, it was a total and utter failure. But instead of just quitting, I took control of the things that I could control, like changing out the hero photos, a description, reworking the copy, and developing a strategy for getting it in front of the people that the design was really right for. That all helped to breathe new life into what could have been considered a dead pattern. And let's be totally honest, that's not my only failure. Or will it be my only flop? It happens all the time with my design projects, my patterns, my courses, my books. But I brush myself off and look at why I'm doing the things I'm doing. I look at the value it provides and how it helps. I look at the value it provides others, and that helps me to continue on with my mission. Maybe have a little pity party, but don't just stop there. Get up and hit it again. Because the only time you truly fail at something is when you quit. when you give up and say, I can't do it. And that's when you truly fail, when you quit. Having a pattern not do well is not a failure. Rewrite the narrative and learn the lessons being taught. The truth is that you're going to want to quit every single day, multiple times per day. Your designs will flop. This one, the next one, the 10th one from now. You will definitely feel like a loser, like you're worthless. And you'll want to give up. But it's like anything else that is hard to do. I mean, if it was easy, would it be really worth it? But take a look ahead to the future. Where do you want to be? Where will you be if you quit? Where will you be if you try again and again and again? Like I've said before, and will continue to share with you as many times as necessary, is that I've been there, where this thing you've put out there with so much of you built into it fails. I've been there, and it's not about the design. It's about you and your strength. It's your mission. It's about your why. It's about your drive to continue on. So what do you do if your design flops? Sure, go do your ugly cry, call a friend, have a glass of wine, but then pick yourself up and try again. Because you are meant to do this work. A design flopping is not a reflection of you or your worth. Because you only fail when you give up. So, before I wrap up this episode, I need you to answer just one question. And that question is, if you knew your very next design would bomb big time, would you do it? Would you create the design if you knew it was going to fail? For me, the answer is pretty simple. It's really easy. And that could be because I've been at this for over a decade. And I totally understand if it's not easy for you. So take some time to really reflect on what you are doing and what you want. I'm not saying designing is for everyone. You might want to pivot and do something completely different, and that's fine. But let's be clear that there is a difference between running away from failure and running towards a dream. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around for episode 6. I hope you've learned something about what failure might mean for your design, and how you can rethink that whole narrative and shift your mindset around what failure really is. I'd love to help you work through your goals, to help you figure out your next move in a one-on-one coaching session. To find out more, go to tianconnerton.com/coaching. I'll have a link in the show notes for more information. But this is a place that we can talk one-on-one to really figure out your next move. And if I can help you, I'd really love to try. I hope you were able to take away something from this episode. If anything I've talked about resonated with you, please reach out on Instagram @designbytian and leave a comment in the post for this episode. Did you enjoy this episode? Please leave a rating, review, and hit subscribe. And share this episode with 5 of your crafty friends that you think might need to hear this. I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Bye for now.